Amid growing scrutiny across major markets, Google has received a modicum of relief in India. On March 29th, the National Company Law Appellate Tribunal upheld the Competition Commission of India order, imposing a penalty of 1,338 crore rupees on Alphabet-owned Google for misusing its dominant position in the Android mobile device ecosystem. However, the tribunal set aside 4 key directions of the competition watchdog that the tech giant had to comply with. When CCI imposed the fine on Google in October last year, it also issued 10 non-monetary directions against the tech giant. Now, Google has been given 30 days to comply with all the other directions of the CCI and pay up the penalty. The directive that asked Google to allow individual App Store developers to distribute their App Store via the Google Play Store was quashed. This CCI order had been a major concern for Google. Another direction that said that Google shall not restrict uninstalling of its pre-installed apps by users was also set aside. The tribunal also set aside the CCI direction that Google should allow app developers to distribute apps through sideloading. The last directive that was set aside was that Google should not deny access to its application programming interface or APIs to the disadvantage of original equipment manufacturers, app developers, and competitors. A legal expert Business Standard spoke to said the silver lining for Google was that it could get the NCLAT to set aside select CCI directions that would have been particularly concerning for its business model. However, NCLAT has upheld the competition watchdog's observation that the tech giant has misused its dominant position in the Android ecosystem. Google's Android mobile operating system dominates in India with a market share of about 95%. Thus, any tweaks to how the Android OS works can potentially affect almost all of India's 600 million smartphone users. So, is Google getting relief on these 4 key CCI directives a positive or negative development for users?
Overall, if we need to summarize it, it's a positive for the consumer because the practice of side loading, which also impacts the security of the device, will no longer be there. There will be certain curves imposing, and coming from Google, it will be good for user because we have seen a lot of cases of privacy coming from the side loading of the apps, which has been one of the key reason for your malware detection on the phone.
Overall, from a consumer perspective or a user perspective, this decision is not a very good one. And because it takes the teeth out of the original CCI order, which would have posed a lot of restrictions on Google and forced it to modify its business model and the anti-competitive behavior. So yes, of course, the user's choice would be restricted since Google would no longer be bound to allow individual app developers to distribute their apps via the Google Play Store.
The setting aside of which of these 4 directions will have the most impact on users?
So I think the major impact, like I said, sideloading is one. Again, we need to look at it at multiple angles, right? There are certain Play Stores. Obviously, there are third-party apps that are good, right? You might find an app, but what about the overall security of those Play Stores, right? So users can still go out and check on those app stores rather than allowing the distribution through the Play Store. Yes, in a sense, we can say that the user choice will be curtailed to a certain extent.
The tech major will still need to comply with the remaining 6 orders of the CCI in India. These are as follows. Google can't force OEMs to pre-install an entire suite of apps or position its apps in a certain way. Google will not be able to link the licensing of Play Store and Play services to OEMs with the requirement of pre-installing any of its other applications. It won't be able to pay OEMs to maintain the exclusivity of its search services. It won't be able to stop OEMs from selling smart devices based on Android forks. And it must allow users to choose their default search engine. Google may appeal in the Supreme Court against directives like allowing OEMs to develop devices based on Android forks, which the tech giant claims is a risk to user safety. But how will users be affected if these 6 CCI directions are ultimately upheld?
If the Supreme Court upholds them, then Google would be forced to continue to comply with them. And I think from a long-term perspective, it gives more space in the market for competition. Also, it prevents the strong arm tactics of Google in terms of forcing OEMs to have its pre-installed apps, and besides also giving the users much more flexibility in terms of the usage of other options.
NCLAT's directive maintains the status quo on the safety of Android users. But the universe of app stores and alternatives that would have been available to them has shrunk. Since both Google and CCI can challenge NCLAT's decision, there may be additional developments that can affect 570 million Indians. While we keep a lookout for them, maybe a debate on whether safety should come at the cost of choice is also necessary.
If you like this video, share it and subscribe to Business Standard. For more news, views and insights, log on to www.business-standard.com. Do also follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Telegram and LinkedIn.